What would you like to see change in your life? And what is the biggest obstacle that you're facing now? I run a 5-week program at the Inner Knowing School for serious individuals who are ready to take the next step in their personal and professional lives. I will personally be coaching a small group of individuals, a number of practical tools and frameworks for creating an intuition practice and for self mastery. You can find more at theinnerknowingschool.com. I have a master's certification in intuition medicine, and I've condensed 10 plus years of experience and research navigating how to harness your energy and intuition in an easy to access live curated course. Now, as someone who's helped countless creatives, entrepreneurs, and many who are just plain stuck, open doors of possibility they never thought existed, I've seen this strategy transform people's inner states and external reality. And the best part is that you'll skyrocket your output and unlock your creative genius. I'll work with you weekly live to overcome your limiting beliefs and show you how to manage your energy instead of your time. I'll teach you how to create clarity, processes, develop your intuition based on some of the top tools and frameworks that I've developed. And you'll get access to guided meditations and visualizations not available anywhere else. This method is so effective that even if you don't have that much time, or if you think that you might not be ready, this will work for you. You can check out the link in the show notes to join the waiting list, and you can check out what past clients had to say about the program. Wishing you all many blessings ahead. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Blood Moon Box, a monthly subscription box service for period pads and tampons to help support all humans who have a cycle for that time of the month, and no need to run to a store to mix and match period supplies that don't cater to the entire ebbs and flows of your cycle. There are 2 box options based on your cycle, light and medium, and then heavy. And in addition to the period products, you'll also receive PMS herbal teas, a candle, and some other items for your time of the month. You can reserve a box by navigating to bloodmoonbox.com. And bloodmoonbox.com is on a mission to destigmatize the idea of period blood. At Blood Moon Box, they believe that it is the time to honor the enchanting magic within every person who has a cycle. So join us in embracing the magic of your cycle with Blood Moon Box. Hi, my name is Yasmin Tarehi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. On today's episode, I'll be speaking with Mandev Khalsa. Mandev is an award-winning filmmaker and the creator of My Moon Map, which is a mobile app to track your moods and behavior pattern using the ancient yogic science of the moon centers. For years, Mandev has deeply researched esoteric, energetic structures in yogic teachings to discover energy and power. Mandev teaches at the Rama Institute, and her classes feature deep breathing, mantra, meditation, and gong relaxation. She guides the class through a mandala of yogic postures, pranayam, and meditation with an emphasis on conscious breathing, proper posture, and applying precise techniques to open an influent flow of energy. I am so excited to welcome Mandev to the show. I actually just took her class this morning. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mandev. And so to kick it off, for those listening, we've got like 70 plus countries tuning in from all over the world. What is Kundalini yoga, if you can explain it to someone who's never heard of it before?
Yeah, that's great. Kundalini yoga, it's essentially at the base of your spine, of everybody's spine, we have a dormant energy inside of us. And that's known as the Kundalini force, the Kundalini energy. And Kundalini yoga is a technology to wake that up in us. And it's very powerful. It is a series of pranas, exercises, kriyas, mantra. It combines all of those elements so you can wake up essentially your own energy field.
Amazing. And, it's kind of to double click a little bit on some of the practices that come up in Kundalini. Kriya is a word that I heard for the first time a couple years ago. Can you describe what exactly is a Kriya and how does it work within the context of a Kundalini yoga set?
Yeah, a kriya means a complete action. That's what that word means. And a kriya can be one posture or it can be several postures. It really depends on what you're practicing. But what that means, complete action, if I practice a kriya, that means all of my chakras are balanced. All of my 10 bodies are balanced. Those are my energetic bodies. My tattvas are balanced. The glands secrete differently. So a kriya takes care of the whole package. And so you always want to opt to practice a Kriya or a complete Kundalini Yoga set because you energetically will be taken care of.
Can you describe what a tattva is for people learning about that for the first time?
Yeah, tattvas, they're interesting. They're the elements in you. So you have five: e- ether, air, fire, water, earth. And so each person is a combination of those tattvas. And so you want to balance them every single day. So for instance, if somebody is very fiery, we all probably know people in our life that are just kind of fiery, or maybe they're very, very angry. You could say that their fire tattva is dominant in them. So maybe they would want to practice something with a little bit more water in order to balance themselves out.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Super interesting. And what about mantra? Why is mantra such a big part of this practice, and why is actually saying mantra important?
Oh gosh, mantra. I could talk all day about mantra. I love it so much. Mantra is so powerful because a mantra is a sound. It's like a wave of a sound, and it it's an off-planet sound, and it has a power to it. And what happens is when you chant a mantra, it stimulates the upper palate of your mouth. So that's sort of like a keyboard, the upper palate of the mouth. And the mantra enters in a specific code in the upper palate of the mouth, which then sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which is the master gland. And so that gland is in charge of all the glands in the body. And so when you send a signal, a certain vibration to that gland, that master gland's like, hey, all you other glands in this body, up your secretions. Right. So it helps control the secretions of the body. And so when your secretions are upgraded, then you start to feel better. Maybe your third eye opens, but all of a sudden you're healthier. And that's what mantra gives you. And it also, the top of, it's called the crown chakra, which is at the top of the head. And that's like the thousand petal lotus, you'll hear people call it. But that area is very important because that's your satellite dish, and your stream of thoughts come through the crown chakra. So if you're somebody who has, maybe a negative stream of thoughts that come in all the time, because every time we blink our eyes, we're downloading essentially 1,000 thoughts. That's how the subconscious mind works. And so if I'm downloading 1,000 thoughts per blink of the eye, those thoughts are coming through that crown chakra. And so I choose one of those thoughts, only one, consciously. So the 999 get dumped in my subconscious mind. And so this is where people start to feel weird, because the subconscious mind will then build up day after day after day, years, decades. It can build up, and then all of a sudden, like, we feel a pressure within us, which I think a lot of people can relate to. You feel this pressure, like an uneasiness, and that's because the subconscious mind is overloaded. And so what a mantra does is first of all, it sends a signal to your crown chakra to download higher quality thoughts. So maybe it's not like negative things, it starts to be higher frequency things. And then it also cleanses the subconscious mind. So I always think of it like it's the equivalent of taking, if you don't clean your kitchen, for a day, you'll be fine. And then let's say like 2 days go by. It's a little bit, you should probably straighten it up. And maybe a week goes by. The trash is starting to smell, the dishes are piling up, flies are starting to come. It's going to get weird. And that's the same thing with your mind. If you don't clean it and cleanse it, things will get weird. So mantra is an important technology to cleanse that.
Fascinating. Okay, so the mantras obviously have such an impact on a lot of the endocrine, the hormonal system, which really kind of these master glands within the body. And so, are there any mantras or even particular kriyas that you think are particularly important to practice, every single day, or at least maybe the top 3 to 4 that you think really highly of, and why you think that they are so important?
Yeah, I think when anybody asks what should I start doing for my practice, I always say do anything that is interesting to you. So there's not like one thing. A lot of people are drawn to different practices. So my recommendation is just to go to a class and try a bunch of different things and see what feels right. Some people like to have their own daily practice. So, like, for instance, they want to practice set Kriya every single day. Which is a powerful Kriya and meditation. Other people just want to attend a class and get inside a group energy field. But the main thing that you want to focus on is your aura. And the aura, a lot of people don't understand how the aura works. And there's a science to the aura. And so a person who has some sort of practice, their aura is going to be a minimum of 9 feet in all directions. That's a healthy aura. So if you're depressed or if you're chronically stressed, it's going to be a lot smaller than that. And so one of the first things you can do if you feel like you're kind of in a space where you just don't feel good is do some kind of prana, do some kind of practice to help the aura. And so the right side of the aura is how opportunities come to you. So that's like new jobs, new cars, new partners, whatever it is. The left side of the aura is can you hold the opportunity? So a lot of people can call it in, but a lot of times they can't hold it. And then how far your aura goes into the ground determines how much physical wealth you have on the planet. And how much your aura goes upward into the sky determines like how cosmically connected you are. So I always tell people to really focus on making sure they have a very balanced auric field.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that so much. And then what about this idea of like arc lines? What does that mean?
Oh my gosh, I love the arc lines. So the arc line is really fascinating. And that goes from earlobe to earlobe. Everybody has an arc line there. And that so have you ever met somebody where you're like that person's really fast? Right? They're quick. That means the speed of their arc line is very, very fast. And then sometimes if you're like that person's super slow, like they don't get it. That's their arc line frequency. That's those words we commonly hear. And so when the arc line it's a continuous like flip of energy going from earlobe to earlobe. And it's sort of the base of the auric field. And it has a color to it. It can be blue, it can be white, or it can be gray. And a lot of times people your destiny is written on the arc line. So why you came to the planet Earth, what you're supposed to accomplish is written on the arc line. And sometimes if there's something that happens, there could be breaks inside this arc line, which is not good. But and when we are in relationships with people, it's an arc line to arc line communication. So it's how well the arc lines can exchange frequencies. So sometimes, like if, I'll hear a woman say, I was dating this person, but they weren't on my level. That's arc line talk, right? The arc lines couldn't pass the frequency back and forth. And the Akashic records are written on your arc line. So anything that you've said, bad or good, is inside that arc line.
Fascinating. I love that so much. I mean, I want to double click on this idea of frequency in general, because, I think it's important to talk about these concepts of, well, if we are resonating at a certain frequency, then what does that mean for our life, right? Because Kundalini Yoga, based on what I understand, increases our level of frequency, our energy within our body. And I think people are really attracted to people who have more energy, right? It's just a very attractive quality, like enthusiasm and this joie de vivre and joy. So yeah, I'm curious, if you could talk a little bit more about why our energy and our frequency matters on the physical plane.
Oh, yes. The frequency is so important. And why I love Kundalini Yoga, I love this practice, which it's a technology. So it's not a belief system. People think that it's a religion or, something weird. It's a technology. And I love it because people from all belief systems can practice it. And the whole goal is to raise your frequency. So so your frequency, when we use those terms, it's how fast this psychomagnetic field around you is moving. And so, like, normally when you walk around the world and you see just an average person that doesn't have a spiritual practice, their frequency is about a point 0.5, point 0.6, point 0.7, point 0.8. That's just like the normal person. But if you see somebody who has a practice, it's usually about a 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8. That's somebody who practices. And then if somebody really practices, they have a strong practice, they can get to like 1.9, 2.0. 3.5 is the maximum frequency you can have on this planet. And so the frequency, if my frequency is high, that means that I'm attracting a high frequency. And sort of my best example of this is this guy who he was adorable, but he was like one of these nerdy types of guys. He was like in tech, he did coding, and and he was saying that the type of woman he was attracted to, those type of women were not attracted to him, and he really wanted to have a certain type of partner. It was important to him. So he started doing this practice called Sarabandande Kriya. It's sort of a nice workout for the body. And so he started doing that 11 minutes a day. And not long after, we saw him, and he had like this really good looking girl with him, and he just had this big smile on his face. So he basically changed his frequency and what his magnetic field was broadcasting out, and he had an intention behind it, which also helps, but it's not required. And then he was able to attract a different level of person in his life. So that's what I love. And whenever I personally want to make a change in myself, or I need something, I do something to change my frequency to increase it.
Can you talk to us about Sarabandende Kriya and like what that is exactly in terms of like how that helped him?
Yeah, no, Sarabandende Kriya is very powerful. So you start off in what's known as it's triangle pose in this system, but it's the equivalent of a downward dog. So you inhale here. It's Sarabandende is a series of 4 breaths. So you inhale deeply in the triangle pose or downward dog, and then you exhale as you move the body the top of a push-up or like a chaturanga, and then you inhale cobra, and then you exhale into downward dog or triangle. That's one. And then you just keep going. And so you want to have, what I like about this is because of the way you're putting the body, it generates a diagonal breath, which is very powerful for the system. So you breathe really deep while you're practicing it. And this Sarabandende Kriya is really good about, because it's hard physically, what that does is it builds a mental strength in the person and the practitioner. And that mental strength gives you a spiritual strength. So I've seen people who didn't have enough confidence in themselves, or they were very, very shy, or just didn't speak up. And they started practicing this Sarabandende Kriya for 3 minutes, and they completely transformed their personality. They were chatty, they stood up for themselves. They gained so much confidence from it. And I think it's one of the most powerful things we can practice.
And so, Mandev, you speak about the number of minutes we need for some of these practices. Can you explain to us why, why 3 minutes, why 11? And I think the other one is 31.
Yeah, no, I actually am not quite sure why those numbers were given, but you can always shorten. So if a meditation says only practice this for 31 minutes, you can't go over 31 minutes, but you can always go less. So sometimes if your schedule, you're running late and you don't have time to do your 11-minute meditation, just do it for a minute. Just do it for 2 minutes. Either way, you're going to benefit. It's the equivalent, like if I were to give you $100, that would be great. Or if I gave you $1, you're still up. You're still up $1. So basically, it's whatever you can do. If you want to start a practice, you just look at the time that you have and you try to fill it. But 3 minutes is like if you do 3 minutes of cat cow, that's enough time to set the whole glands, let the glands reset, let the 10 bodies be balanced, let the chakras crystallize. That's, typically 3 minutes is what you need for that, but you can do it for 1 minute too.
Got it. Amazing. And, since the topics of prosperity and love are so important, I was wondering if you can give us a Kriya for prosperity and then one for self-love.
Yeah, let me think about that. There's this for prosperity, there's this meditation that I love called Sare Sasa. And you chant the Sare Sasa mantra. I use the White Sun version. And you have your hands, you're sitting in easy pose. And on both hands, you're holding down the pinky finger. That's your communication finger. And then your eyes are focused at the tip of the nose. So when your eyes are open, looking at the tip of the nose, that locks the optical nerve. And it also opens the pituitary gland. And so all you have to do is get in that posture and you start chanting Sare Sasa. You chant along with the White Sun track. And that does a lot with communication. And it helps, it also brings good luck. So if you want to find a new partner or a different quality of partner, that meditation really helps that. And I just think it's really important because I like what it does to the personality. It helps solidify who you actually are. Because a lot of times, like when you're in relationships with people, it's basically one subconscious thought form of one person relating to the subconscious thought form of the other person.
Right, right, right.
Right. So like you have father issues, well, you have mother issues, so the Sare Sasa meditation helps strip all that away, clears that so two people can just relate authentically with who they are.
I love that. I started to do that mantra recently, and it's been quite life-changing. I'm only able to get to 11 minutes. I can't quite do the 31. My monkey mind is just all over the place. But okay, great. So folks can start there with and is it called something, or is it just called like the Sare Sasa meditation?
Sare Sasa meditation, I believe. There's a few different versions, like there's different variations using that mantra, but the one I described really helps. And what it does too, it's that mantra is the base of all mantras. So if you're just now starting a practice or you want to start a practice, that's a good one to start with. It's very subtle. It helps with your power to manifest. And it also, if there's any adversity in your life, that Sare Sasa mantra melts it. and it helps you be a really, really good communicator, which is important. And it brings prosperity. So I really like that meditation because it's easy to do and it does so much. It brings peace, it brings prosperity, even if it wasn't in your destiny. So if you don't have prosperity written in your arc line, if you don't have wealth written in your arc line, meaning when you came to the planet Earth, the contract that you made, if there's just not wealth there, this meditation can help write that, which is why this system's so powerful. So even if something's not written, you can write it.
I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions from that. How does this work again? Amazing. And Mandev, why is breath so important to this process? And why is there this like combination of breath and movement and mantra all together? Because I think that's something, a lot of other yogic practices use breath, but the way that Kundalini yogis use breath, it's very powerful. And I've also noticed doing this practice for a while now, I've noticed that my breath is like really a lot more powerful, just because of the practice of so much breathing. But yeah, if you could talk to us about breath and why it's so important.
Breath, also known as prana, that means your life force. And I am so passionate about breath work. All my classes, we do intense breath work because it's my opinion that people are pranic deprived. They don't breathe enough. And what happens with the breath, so the pranic body is the 8th energetic body. And it's also when you came to the planet, when your soul incarnated, you were given so many breaths for this lifetime. And once you reach that number, you die, you leave the planet. And so you can prolong your life by taking deeper breaths. And you can also reverse your aging with breath. So the pranic body is very, very important because it also determines how radiant you are. So if you look at a person who doesn't breathe enough, sometimes you can see all of the stress in their face. You can see just sort of the radiance is not turned on. And by having a pranic practice, it's like turning on the lights in a dark room. It's very important. And when you combine your breath with the movement, with the mantra, a lot of times when, let's say, like you're moving the legs up and down, whatever the posture is or the Kriya, that's going to generate how you're moving the body is going to generate a very specific type of breath that you can only get by doing that posture or that Kriya. And that certain breath has certain healing components to it. And so that's why the system's so powerful. And any disease and imbalances usually starts with the pranic body, meaning you don't breathe enough. So if you have low anxiety or if you have chronic fatigue, a lot of times that can be healed through just breathing.
Love it. I love that. And what about the word sadhana? Why is having this practice every day so important as well?
Oh, sadhana?
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah, sadhana. Yeah,
Sadhana. Okay.
sadhana. Well, also with breath, if I can just make one more point about breath, with breath, you basically, if you do a deep O mouth breath, meaning you're inhaling, exhaling rapidly through an O shaped mouth, you can totally awaken your Kundalini. You can have a complete Kundalini rising just by doing that. Or you can, if you've been carrying some sort of grief inside your body, a lot of times, like if anything traumatic has happened to us or something sad, maybe we know about it, maybe we don't, we carry that physically inside our bodies. And a lot of times it's locked in our diaphragm, lower lungs area. And so if you spend, let's say, a minute or 3 minutes doing an O mouth breath, you can totally dissolve that. You can drop it completely. And then you can have this intense Kundalini rising. And then all of a sudden, everything, your whole life has changed. That's how powerful the breath is. It brings more of your soul frequency into the finite. So your physical body, like my arms, my skin, my brain, my organs, that's all called finite. but my spirit, my soul, that's infinite. And so Kundalini yoga taps my infinite self into my finite, which is amazing. And people get locked too much in, the body, the earth. And so when you're able to open yourself up to your infinite self, your infinite flow, then that's when you start living like it's heaven on earth. And that's the goal. But you can totally transform yourself by just picking a pranic practice, some kind of breath you want to do, and going deep inside of that.
Like I love that. And it's something that everyone can do, right? I mean, it's an accessible option for so many people. So it doesn't require like an actual hardware piece or anything.
Yeah, no, exactly. And in my classes, I tell people like sometimes the posture is too physically challenging for some people. So I always tell them like just do your best. It doesn't matter what your physical capability is, but everybody can breathe deeper. So just keep your breath deep, go deeper inside the breath. Because also inside your breath and inside your sound, you know everything. So a lot of times we're always looking for the answers outside of us. And this practice gives you the answers inside of yourself. And you get that by listening to your breath. And if I listen to myself inhale deep, then that expands my auric field. So a lot of times, like if you feel like you don't know what to do, just put your hands, press the palms together in your hands, go into a prayer pose, and just breathe long and deep and see if you get the clarity you need. Because inside your breath is all your knowledge, it's everything.
I love that. Inside your breath is all your knowledge. I need to like put that quote somewhere in my room. So what makes Kundalini yoga, or actually we can go back to oh my gosh, now I'm going to mispronounce it again. Sadhana?
Oh, sadhana.
Sadhana.
Yeah.
Why? What is it, first of all? And why is this practice also kind of important to the path of Kundalini yoga?
Yeah, sadhana, what a sadhana is, that simply means a daily practice. So if you think of it like this, if I want to get big muscles, I'm going to go to a gym and I'm going to lift weights. If I go once, I'll benefit, but I won't get the big muscles that I want, right? I have to go every day and I have to have a practice at the gym. The same thing, the same concept applies to your spiritual path or spiritual practice or just if you just want to feel good. It's important to have some sort of daily practice where you're cleansing the subconscious mind. Because if I'm not holding all of these thoughts in my subconscious mind, then I can have a higher frequency thought. So then I can just have my thoughts and not have all the weird ones. So you do that through a daily practice. A lot of little things come up. Somebody cut you off in your car, a coworker upset you, taxes are coming, whatever it is. So we can hold emotions. It's almost like we can freeze ourselves in time and we might not even realize it. And the sadhana, the daily practice, helps relieve that pressure inside of us so that we can experience a infinite flow of energy inside of us. And that's also like, I love yoga. I love Kundalini yoga because you can turn into a superhuman. And it wasn't designed to take broken people and make them whole again. It does that. It's designed to take ordinary people and make them extraordinary because you can unlock all sorts of powers inside yourself. There's infinite possibilities, and that's why I'm drawn to it so much. And so sadhana helps build that power. And it's just the same like if you're if you chant a mantra a bunch during the day as much as possible, then that's creating certain grooves inside your psyche that have the vibration of the mantra, the frequency of the mantra. The same thing as if you're like carving a table, if you have a piece of wood and you're carving a flower inside the wood, like an ornate decoration, you have to chisel that part of the wood for a long time in order to get the shape that you want. So that's what the sadhana gives you.
Hmm. And does it have to be in the morning, or is it kind of just whenever you have time during the
You
day?
know, yeah, ideally before the sun comes up, it's going to be more powerful before the sun comes up, and it's easier to do. But I always think whenever you'll do it, that's the perfect time to do it.
Mm, amazing. Okay. And where does Kundalini yoga come from? I think a lot of people, may not know the lineage or the history of it. I mean, we could just talk about this for a very short while because I want to move on to, the moon map and some of the other pieces that, that you've actually created recently. But yeah, can you talk to us a little bit about where Kundalini yoga came from and how it's sort of progressed?
Yeah, well, Kundalini Yoga is a 5,000-year-old science, and it's been hidden throughout time and space all of this time. And it was taught in secret until really recently. And it was, I think, in the late 60s, Yogi Bhajan came over to the United States and started teaching Kundalini Yoga openly. And that's where this lineage comes from. It comes from that place. But it's basically passed on from mind stream to mind stream, heart to heart. That's how the energy is transferred.
And you also talk a little bit on some of the classes that I've been to. You speak about how Kundalini yoga can actually influence, your own entrepreneurship and being able to create an authentic voice. And I've seen you do that as well as the creator of the Moon Map, the mobile app. I think it's called Moon Map, correct?
My moon map.
Oh, my moon map, and yeah, I'm super curious, and it just also seems like a lot of folks in the community are very entrepreneurial, artistic, creative, and so I'm wondering, what is that link between this entrepreneurial kind of creative side and Kundalini yoga?
Yeah, well, Kundalini Yoga is great because it opens up the creative life force. So it's very much a creative energy. And when you practice it, you'll start to notice, like, oh my gosh, I'm getting all these ideas. I never had these type of ideas before because it's a creative flow that you're trying to get on. And so that's why they become very successful when they practice because they're tuning into a new creative part of themselves. And then a lot of times people will have great ideas, but they don't know how to execute them. Right. So a lot of times people are like, I had this idea for this business, but they can't actually turn it into a reality. But we have certain mantras that we can use, like HUD and Satnam, and we have tons of things you can use that help whatever you want to bring onto the planet, whatever you want to start. It gives you the energy to start it.
Mm. And it's HAR, right? Because I know sometimes.
Yeah, it's HAR, but it's pronounced HUD. And that's like one of my favorite mantras. It's a prosperity mantra, it's a seed sound. And it also it helps manifest. So it helps bring what you want into this timeline, this matrix.
I love
And
that.
actually, I have a funny story about HUD. So if you want something, you can chant like HUD new car, HUD new car, HUD new car. And I was driving down with my friend this street in Venice, California called Abbot Kinney. It's a very popular street, and it was a Sunday afternoon. And there's never parking on this street during this time. But we had to go into this one store and run an errand. And so the lady driving was like, we're never going to find parking. Oh, maybe we should have Ubered over here, taken a taxi. So I started chanting HUD parking space, HUD parking space, HUD parking space. And then a parking space opens right in front of the store. And my friend's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this every single time. And then when we were leaving the store, as we were driving down the street, parking spots kept opening up as we were driving, like cars were pulling out, opening. So for me and her, I was like, wow, it's very, very powerful.
Mm. Oh, I love that, and I'm sure a lot of folks are going to try that too. So it's HAR, and you say it from your kind of solar plexus stomach area.
Yeah, so you pull the navel in, head, like the tip of the tongue and the navel are both engaged. So they kind of move as a unit at the same time. Hud, 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 hud.
Got it. Okay. Amazing. And so, Mandev, what are some of the other changes that you've seen people experience when doing Kundalini yoga?
Oh my goodness. People, they transform so much. And I think one of the things that moves me every single time, it's just the healing power of the system, and it's self-healing. And I've met people who have gone through really terrible scenarios, or they're recovering addicts, or they lost somebody in their life and they're filled with grief. And I've seen just sort of their life force renew itself, and they do it themselves. They heal themselves, they do healing breaths, they do the work, they chant, they practice, and they just get more of their own energy. And that's really beautiful. And I've seen people just, you know, develop psychic powers, develop all kinds of things, or meet the partner of their dreams, or get their dream job, or start their dream business. It's just a really beautiful practice because it's so inclusive and anybody can do it. And I've seen people just beyond their wildest imagination, just such magic comes into their life.
Mm, love that so much. I know, and you've shared so many anecdotes and stories over the year as a teacher, and so I just have been so moved by a lot of the stories. So, Mandev, what attracted you to this space? Can you talk to us about like what really drew you to Kundalini Yoga and why you've dedicated so much of your life to it?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I started Kundalini yoga in my early 20s. And it was almost like the angelic beings and the forces on the other side got really loud with me. I had a really interesting experience where, I was supposed to start. And this basically in my arc line, it's written that I had to practice. And just like everybody's arc line has that same thing. If they have a destiny to practice it, they'll find it. And so basically, I had a few loud messages that I received. And as soon as I walked into my first class, it was sort of like I heard a clunk sound. It was sort of like the whole world was topsy turvy. And I walk in, I took a breath, and everything was set right. It was like my energy field just did like a sigh of relief, like, oh, now I'm home, even though I'd never been to this place before. And everything felt very familiar in a certain way. And everything just felt like there was just a deep soul connection for me personally.
Mm.
And just like everybody else, I had a ton of stuff to work out and to discover. And so I used it as healing and as a way to activate my energy. And it almost feels like I've lived several incarnations. And so it's deeply transformative. And a lot of people aren't the same person they were in the beginning, and they're a lot better. And so I certainly fall under that category, but it's just so important to practice and to activate your own energy field. And it's also important to practice in a system that has a lineage, that way that it's sort of like if there's not a lineage, then it's like if you can try to get on the internet, but if there's not a Wi-Fi connection, you can't surf the web. That's the same concept.
Right, right, right. So, what sort of things have surprised you the most on this journey? Looking back at the teachings and some of your students and some of the work that you've done. What has surprised you the most?
Well, I think one thing that surprised me the most, and this is, well documented, is just, there's been a lot of attacks on this lineage. And because of the immense power that it has, that of course is going to be attacked because it makes people conscious, it makes people use their own energy field. and think for themselves. And so I am surprised with how easily people just believe whatever they're told. And I wish people would do their own research and go by their own experience, basically. This is an experientially based system that's we're in the Aquarian age now. So previously, when this Kundalini yoga was brought over from the east to the west, that was in a Piscean age, where it was all about, Piscean age was all about power, control. It was about like, I have knowledge, you don't. I've read all of these books. So that was the Piscean age. Right now we're in the Aquarian age, where it's all about experience. Like, no one cares if you read a book. Can you breathe properly? Is your aura a high frequency? That's what we care about in the Aquarian age. And so I think that has surprised me the most, is that factor. And the wellness industry as a whole is attacked a lot, because that's just the type of planet we're on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I also agree. I think people should go check things out for themselves and see how they feel rather than jumping to conclusions,
Yeah.
Based on other people's points of view, which is, largely the game that we're playing right now. So Mandev, what do you want to tell our listeners about their health, wellness, well-being? What is like your main takeaway to people who are like tuning in? What would you want to tell them?
For anybody tuning in, it's, like I want people to be happy, like really, really happy. In this system, it said happiness is your birthright. And I'd love for people just to start experiencing their own happiness and their own love, because those are just energies that you can just easily subscribe to if you have enough energy in your system. And so that would be my wish for people, is to just start experiencing their happiness. And then in your relationships with people, a lot of times they're way too difficult, right? With your spouse, with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your kids, your coworkers. And so what I'd like to help people do is for them to start having fun with the relationships in their lives. But in order to, that's a higher frequency than not having fun. So if you have a small practice, your practice can be like 3 minutes a day, and that's perfect. But having a small practice or a big practice, that's going to give you the energy you need to improve your life. And when your life is improved, your health is improved. And when those things are improved, then you're more prosperous. And that's what I love seeing, and that's what I'm passionate about.
Thank you so much, Mandev. And are there any resources that you can point folks to in order to learn more about you and your work? Where can people find you?
Yes, my website is called mymoonmap.com. And there I have lots of resources for people that are interested in practicing, interested in learning about the moon centers, my app, as well as my teaching schedule. I teach on Rama TV. So every class I have people tuning in from all over the world. And all of the classes are also on replay. So if you're not able to do it live, you can catch it later. And there's a chat. So we have people like from Italy typing in their questions in the chat, and it's a lot of fun.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Mandev. This was so lovely. I learned so much today.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be on this podcast. It's one of my favorites. So thank you so much. I love the work you're doing, and I love everyone you have. It's been really inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mandev. Thank you. And for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening. In this episode, we learned about Kundalini Yoga with Mandev Khalsa, and you can tune into Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again.